So Bernie, ultimately, what I wanted to do is just take a minute to kind of honor what it is that you're doing with Farming for Hunger. And I think, number one, it's something that, personally, it kind of touches me. I've had, family members that have had, substance abuse issues and stuff like that. And I also love the fact of just, supporting the community as a whole. So I think it would be really good to kind of shed some light on what Farming for Hunger started as, what it became, how all that happened. And I think a lot of people don't know that, and I think if we can tell that story, ultimately you'll have the support of even more people in the community.
Sure, absolutely. I'd love to share that. So Farming for Hunger originally started out growing food for the hunger community in Calvert County, and then it spread out to growing food for families in Southern Maryland. And through the several seasons of doing that, other things started to come to light, that we started to understand that hunger comes in a lot of different ways. And when we started understanding that, we started new programs. Someone may be, hungry for a relationship. They may have lost someone that they love. And so we just decided that it was time to make a change and do some things different.
Okay. So basically, when you started, you were growing food, essentially. So how do we evolved from growing food? So let's talk about what specifically are you doing now?
Yeah. So we started growing food, and I think it's really evolved into growing lives. Mm-hmm. And what does that look like? And so now we had a labor force that came out from the Maryland Department of Corrections that helped us harvest food, which led to workforce development with returning citizens. We had students that started coming over to help with harvesting food, and it's turned into team building experiences with social and emotional challenges that kids go through today. And we have an annual Tri-County Memory Walk. So we recognize loved ones that we've lost to opioids. And that's some of the new things that we're doing.
Okay, cool. I know that one of the parts of the equation is bringing in inmates and helping them kind of rehabilitate their situation, get them introduced back into the workforce. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and what that looks like, and some of the benefits from that?
Well, the inmates, they have life experiences. And so when the students come out and work with them, they share their story. They share consequences to choices that they made and what that looks like. It's very powerful. It's impactful, not only for the students, but for the men. It makes the men want to be more present as dads for their own children when they get out. And so it's a re-entry for inmates, but it's also very impactful moments for future life choices for our kids.
So that's something that really strikes me. The fact that you went from growing food and feeding people to not just feeding them with the food, but bringing kids into the equation and kind of introducing them with some of the folks that maybe have made bad decisions, and essentially they can prevent some of those outcomes from happening. And then also what you're doing for the guys here. I know that you've been able to secure jobs, after the fact. People come here as they're working their way, out of the system, and essentially, you connect them with where they can go and actually get a job and have a life to get traction and move forward. That's so important in our society, because I feel like so many people, although they might be young and do something and make a bad decision, a lot of times they feel like their life is over and they just have to fall back in those old ways. So to me, that's what's really amazing. So that's cool. That's really cool. Do you want to tell us what specifically you have going on here at the farm, or some changes that you have coming up?
Yeah, for the upcoming season, for the 2020, we're actually going to increase our raised bed out front of the greenhouse. We're going to put in 40 raised beds that we're going to invite kids out to help plant seeds and harvest. We'll use it as a teaching tool for the men from the Department of Corrections to actually learn how to grow their own food for themselves and their families when they get out. We're going to be starting up the greenhouse that where we're setting in right now, and do some hydroponic growing to reach out to the hunger community. We also use this space as training for the men. They're learning new skills on how to operate the greenhouse, the technology that goes behind hydroponic growing. They'll be building raised beds throughout the winter in the complex that we'll not only be putting here at the farm, but as we raise funds, we'll be putting the raised beds in schools as they need them. So it kind of goes along with the Tower Garden program that we're doing with that.
So I'm glad you touched on that. So I was going to jump off from hydroponics, but so same thing, Tower Gardens. I think it's pretty awesome what you've done with the Tower Gardens, and putting those Tower Gardens in the schools and giving the kids a way to kind of interact and see how things grow and kind of get grounded. So can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. Initially, we put the Tower Gardens in the elementary schools because we wanted to reach out to the young students about healthy eating, but also healthy choices. We're doing a lot of work with the middle school and the high school with field trips, but we really felt like we wanted to reach the kids younger. And ultimately, the Tower Garden, for me personally, I started it. It has a lot to do with my own personal history with my daughter and addiction and what she went through. And then looking at my grandson, I want to help set the mindset of my grandson and other kids his age that are in the elementary school versus trying to change the mindset as they get older.
Right.
So we're utilizing the Tower Gardens really as early drug prevention, without ever talking about specifically about drugs to the students, but building the relationship with them.
That's amazing.
With the growing of food. But when they hit 6th grade, in the transition year going into middle school, they will come out for the team building experience, which then we talk about social and emotional challenges that kids go through, including alcohol and drugs.
So how do you use the Tower Garden and teach about growing food and then tie that to like life choices?
Sure. So we were very fortunate to hire a 18-year school teacher that has a lot of experience with Tower Gardens and was an elementary school teacher. So Jackie's doing presentations in the schools now. We're able to, the students get curriculum, the teachers get curriculum to teach them about health and science and math and so on and so forth. But we're going in and doing presentations about manners and respect and choices and do you know who your friends are and things like that. Awesome. The kids, when they plant the seed and grow their own food, they're 65% more likely to eat the fresh fruits and vegetables or try them. It's like a positive peer pressure that they try versus any other way.
That's awesome. That's cool. And honestly, that's the thing that I love about what you do, is that it's just so comprehensive, for somebody like myself that wants to give back and be involved in something that's giving back to the community. To me, you're like a one-stop shop, So, I know that if I'm supporting you and I'm supporting what you're doing, I'm supporting all of these different things, and that's what's super important to me. One of my big things when it comes to charity, and other operations out there is just making sure that, as people in the business community are supporting that the dollars are going to the right places and, people are being taken care of and it's really having an impact, so to speak. And that's one of the things that I see that makes the biggest difference to me. So I would say, if anything, this video, this conversation is really just to raise some awareness as to what you do, so that maybe some other people will jump in and start to support you as well. And ultimately, I think that what you've done here is so impressive and so cool. What I would love is to find someone that could essentially, find a way to replicate yourself, right? Because you can only do so much as one person. And if this can maybe get some traction and raise some awareness of what you're doing, maybe we can create some programs like this in other parts of the country, which I think then we can broaden that impact, which would be amazing.
Yeah, I think our goal here is really, I realize I can't do it all. Right. It takes a village. But what we would like to do going forward is to work with other stakeholders from other areas of the state and other states around the country that have already come out here and share some of the initiatives and programs that we do. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's really about creating healthier and safer communities.
Right.
It just so happens that food is the vessel,
Right.
that gets us together. And like I said, hunger comes in a lot of different ways, and this is a platform where we can provide that.
Yeah, and that's amazing. I mean, the fact. I mean, I know you've touched lots of people, but just being able to touch and change one person's life is worth everything that you do. But it's just amazing how many that you guys can actually touch and at different phases of their life, and that's extremely cool. And I just want you to know I'm grateful for you. So thank you for what you do.
Really appreciate you
Yeah.
too. Thank
Awesome.
you, Mark.
Yeah.